Hello, back again with discussing the various functions of the church. In this video, we're going to combine two functions. We've already devoted one video to worship, we've devoted one video to teaching. And in this video, we're going to combine evangelism and service because those are pretty much intuitive and we have a little bit less to say about them, but we still have some things worth saying, so let's jump right into it. First, we want to look at evangelism. As with teaching, there is a gift of evangelism. Some people are just God-gifted evangelists. Some people just have that knack, which is given to them by the Spirit of God, to proclaim God, to proclaim Christ, to compel others to listen to them and to hear and to believe. Some people just have that gift, and those who have it can use it and are very effective in doing so. Even though this is true, we are all still commanded to proclaim the good news of Jesus, even if we do it imperfectly. So even while there is a gift of evangelism, all of us are called to be evangelists in the general sense. Just as there is a gift of teaching, all of us are called to instruct and to encourage and to upbuild one another in the faith. Here is the ideal location for a strong personal testimony and a good reputation among those both in the church and in the world. One of the things that is so difficult with Christians is that sometimes we do not have a good reputation among those outside the church doors. One of the things that I want to encourage you, and one of the things that was encouraged to me at a fairly young age, is always have a good reputation. Don't do anything that will damage it. Be trustworthy. Be honest. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you're called to help someone, help them willingly. Don't expect payment. Don't demand payment. Don't return. Don't think that you should have something done to you because you did it to someone else. A good reputation is worth more than your weight in gold. And if you've got something to say and you have a good reputation, people will listen to you. Now, all of us sin and all of us do things that we wish we hadn't, but a good reputation comes from repeatedly doing the right thing and doing it in such a way that people notice, but it's not for the notice of people. It's for the notice of God. And having a good reputation as an evangelist is so important. So often we see traveling evangelists who don't know the folks they're preaching to. But if you know someone and you're able to share Jesus with them, then they know who you are. And they know whether or not you're authentic. And that's the kind of evangelism in our world starving for real authentic relationships that is most valuable in this day and age. And it all begins with a good reputation. If people know you're honest, they may disagree with you, but they won't completely dismiss you because they know that you really mean what you say. Evangelism must still be in action, even if all the other church functions are running smoothly. The work that is going on still needs a good explanation. So when the church is functioning well, the evangelist must be there to point people in the right direction. Think, this is a little bit off that topic, but think of Paul as he walked in on the Acropolis and saw the statue to the unknown God. And he was quick to point out, see, you've got this statue. Let me tell you who this unknown God is. I know him and I can tell you all about him. And that's something that is invaluable in evangelism, is to be able to take life situations and turn them quickly to a conversation that may lead to someone being converted. To be ultimately successful, evangelism must move toward relationships. We live in a relationally starved culture where people will do almost anything to be loved authentically. We're tired of being used. We're tired of people having their hands in our pockets. We're tired of being marketing numbers. We really just want to be loved, and we want to be cared about, and we want to be able to reciprocate that with others. So evangelism must move toward relationships. This should seem intuitive because the whole fabric of creation is relational. Research suggests that today's converts come to Christ by and large through the influence of a person they trust and observe, rather than by a crusade or some mass conversion method. It is personal evangelism. It is coming to faith because there's someone in their life that they love and they trust, and they see the faith in action. And we cannot forget that. That is so important. And therefore, everyone should be involved in taking the gospel to the ends of the earth. Everyone. You say, wait a minute, I can't go to the ends of the earth. I know, but your money can. Your gift of Bibles can. Your skill and expertise in training others can. So if you can't go yourself, financially support those who can. Give them 100 copies of the Bible. Teach them how to speak the language of the place they're going. Whatever you can give. Because remember, giving is part of worship, and we serve a giving God. We serve a God who can outgive all of us. But he's making us into his image, so that part of our image then becomes the image of a giver. And so if we can't go to the ends of the earth, we can certainly support those who can. Now, moving to Christian service, because that's a good segue into the idea of service. Again, we're all called to serve. We're all called to give. Just as we're all called to worship, we're all called to teach and proclaim. We're all called to share the gospel. We're all called to serve. Again, the words of Jesus ring so important. If any of you would lead, let him serve. Because if you can't serve, you can't lead. That is the mark of a Christian leader. It's not how nice they sound up on the platform. It's not how humble they act. It's whether or not they truly serve. Are they other-centered or self-centered? And in our world of celebrity pastors, that's really difficult to discern because you don't know them. You just see their stage persona. You don't know who they really are. But we're all called to serve, and if anyone would lead, let him serve. As God gave his Son, and the Son gave his life, and the Spirit for us, so we are commanded to serve one another. That again, going back to the sacrament of foot washing. The foot washing is the act of humble service. Not only the act of service, but the act of being served, which sometimes it's much more difficult to receive service than it is to give it. Historically, the Jews were commanded to serve one another, that they could not glean their fields, and they were to give liberally to the poor or the stranger or the widow. Anyone who was in need, the Jew was commanded to serve them and to give to them and to take care of them. The early Christians were commanded to give to the poor. It's full of the New Testament. Both Jesus and the apostles, the Acts, the letters, everywhere in the New Testament, give, serve. And historically, I think this is such an important point. Wherever the gospel has touched lives, what do we find? We find hospitals, we find orphanages, food pantries, parachurch organizations dedicated to serving the needs of others. No other world religion can claim that. Not one can claim that wherever they go goes humanitarian aid. Wherever they go goes the caring for others. Because no other world religion, quite frankly, lays the value of human life, lays as much value to human life as Christianity does. Not even Judaism. Judaism is very male-centered. Women are less, children are less, and Gentiles are really less. But Christians are commanded to love everybody. Everybody is our neighbor. Go and do likewise are the words that come from Jesus' mouth concerning who is my neighbor. So you don't see Islam building orphanages and hospitals and schools and food pantries. You don't see Buddhists or Hindus doing it. You only see Christians doing it, because Christians believe that the gospel should uplift the community into which it travels. And it always, historically, the gospel is always brought with it aid to the suffering. and help to the helpless. And in that, the church has been, now it's not always been perfect, but the call, and largely that call has been answered, is to be salt and light to the world. Sometimes the call to service has eclipsed the gospel itself, creating an imbalance. We saw that about 100 years ago with the social gospel movement, that meeting the temporal needs of people became more important than actually preaching to them and proclaiming Christ to them. We have seen it recently in the last 30 to 40 years with liberation theology. We see that the poor or the women or the black, getting them out of their oppressed position has been more important than preaching the fullness of the gospel of Christ. Those are a couple examples where service has gotten out of balance with the rest of the Christian message. Even today, churches, particularly evangelical churches, give more to churches and other charitable groups than even government services can match. The church is still the best giver. The church is still the number one vehicle for giving in the world. And social work from churches into the community remain an invaluable bridge in reaching the community with the message of Jesus. So historically, service has always been part and parcel of the gospel. We think of the words of James. We will show you our faith by our works, and first fill their stomach and then proclaim the gospel. Because how can they hear with a growling belly? And that has been the message of the evangelical church. Again, not perfectly, but it has been the message and the work of the church really throughout its whole time, unless it's been clouded by other things such as greed and exploitation, thinking about the colonial period. But it has been a vehicle by which society has been uplifted. Now some theological ideas on service. While the needs of those around us are definitely important, remember the words of Jesus: "The poor you will always have with you." The ministry of the gospel is still the greatest act of service we can render. We can fill bellies, and that's wonderful, but proclaiming Jesus and proclaiming Him as the only hope of the world is still our greatest act of service as Christians. Along with this also, James, as I just alluded to, don't preach without filling the belly. Remember Jesus feeding the 5,000. He fed them with the Word of God, and then He fed them with fish and bread. So, the physical body needs to be fed and nourished just as the soul does. And in that way, we promote a holistic view of the human. Side by side with giving, we serve. If we're led by the Spirit, we serve. And I'm not laying any boundaries on what service is. Christian service takes many forms, but we are givers by nature and we are servants by nature. Just as Jesus, who is Lord of all, became a servant. He humbled himself in the form of a servant. He wrapped himself in a towel and washed his feet washed the disciples' feet like a servant. So Jesus is a servant. We are servants. Jesus is a giver. We are givers, as we are conformed to His likeness and His image. We'll be back with discussing the idea of fellowship. Thanks. See you later. Bye.